In the last video, we calculated a confidence interval, and with a certain confidence level, 95% confidence. So I want to talk a little bit more about what does this 95% confidence mean, and why did we change from the word probability to the word confidence? Okay, there's an important reason for that. So here we have, let me start with this diagram. So this is our true proportion, this line. Okay, it's a value that we don't know, so it's unknown. It's what we want to know. What percentage of the population thinks this, right? That's what we want to know. But we don't know that, so we get a sample. So this is our first sample. These kind of look like Star Wars TIE fighters to me. Here's our first sample, and this is our p hat. So we get a value. Maybe it's 23%. I don't know. And then we get our confidence interval, right? We have subtract our margin of error and add our margin of error. So this is our confidence level interval. If we did another sample, we would get a different p hat, and then we would form its confidence interval. If we repeated this, so usually we just do it one time, but this one is another p hat, another p hat. This is if we repeated this over and over again. We would expect 95% of these confidence intervals to contain the true proportion. So notice how this one doesn't even capture the true proportion. It's away from the line, whereas all the others are capturing it. So that's what this text is saying up here. If we collected random samples over and over again, and keeping the same sample size, each time we would get a different sample proportion. And from each sample proportion, we would calculate a different standard error, margin of error, and confidence interval. And that's what these are all representing, a different confidence interval. About 95% of these confidence intervals would capture the true proportion. And that means the complement, about 5%, would miss the true proportion. Okay? So the reason we use the word confidence is that we need to convey that the uncertainty is in the interval. So the interval is what's moving around based on our sample. The true proportion is staying the same. It is what it is. We just don't know what it is. Okay, so that's why we use confidence rather than probability. We wouldn't say the probability that the proportion is in the interval, because that makes it sound like the proportion is moving around, but it's actually the interval that's moving around. So here are some different interpretations. This one is a correct one. It says we are 95% confident that the interval from 58 to 62% captures the true proportion of hiring managers who use social media to research job applicants. Okay, that's perfectly fine. It's a little technical, so I usually use this one. We're 95% confident that between 52 and 60% of hiring managers use social media to research job applicants. Or the one we had on the previous page was another version of this one. Incorrect. There's a 95% probability that the true proportion is between that and that. That makes it sound like the true proportion is bouncing around, and sometimes it's in and sometimes it's out, but that's not true at all. The true proportion is either in the interval or not. The randomness is in the confidence interval. So it's the interval that's moving around based on our sample. So we say we're 95% confident that the interval is capturing the true proportion. Okay, so that's a little bit more on interpreting confidence intervals, and we'll do some practice in the next video.